Hello everyone, I'm Extra Cheesy 87 and this is Let's Play Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Part 25. In the previous video, a war crime was committed against us, but the villain behind the sweat scene has been found and dealt with, and so because of that, we can move forward. I'm not at legal liberty to expand further, but let's continue with the trial. Now, it has been like 3 or 4 days since I last recorded this game, so I don't really know what the hell's going on in this trial, but... Everyone, please, everyone! Can we keep this private, please? This is my story, god damn it. My scoop! Forgery? That's a serious crime! Worthy of an execution! Drew Misham is known as an artist these days. There were rumors he dabbled in another kind of art a few years back. Another art? Meaning forgery? Drew Misham was talented, alright. Talented at making precise, detailed fakes. A fact that certain criminal elements were quick to discover. Criminal elements? What? You can't seriously be talking about... Exactly! I'm talking about forging evidence! The rumor started circulating 7 years ago. 7 years ago? But we understand that this letter, this payment of $100,000 was for... Exactly. Forged evidence nets tidy profit. End quote. Order. Why, it's like our victim was living a double life. This is my chance. So the victim had ties to the criminal world, right? He could have had plenty of enemies we know nothing about. It's my first time hearing of this criminal world. Aren't you a prosecutor? We certainly found no criminal connections when we conducted our investigation. And how do you explain all this money? You have to admit there's a possibility of some illegal activity here. There's no proof tying this letter to our case. Our case was and remained simple from the beginning. Only the defendant could have poisoned that mug that night, but like, not really. Where the mug at? Where the mug been? We don't know. And you, of course. Hey, the only thing I poison is my pen when I'm writing reviews. Mr. Brushel, your testimony at this point has been quite unreliable. So we're going to keep letting you talk. It doesn't speak well of your reporting acumen. What are you talking about? My journalism's rock solid. Journalism's so solid you could stand an elephant on it. End quote. In any case, let's hear a summarized recap of your testimony. I know I just called you a down dirty liar, but like, yeah, just keep talking and we'll take your word as gospel. We can ascertain the situation in that studio from the recap. The trial is over. Apollo, what's he talking about? Cross-examination showed Mr. Brushel didn't have reason or means to poison him. As long as there's no other suspects, then the killer had to be Vera, that's what. The next testimony is our last chance. But like, there's no evidence, man. It's just you got an unreliable witness. Like, this man's obviously way more suspicious than Vera. Bunch of nonsense. The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured coffee. Maybe he poisoned himself. I don't know. Maybe he's just a freaking sick freak. She's admitted as much herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips was during the interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter. Nothing touched his lips, eh? Nice testimony. Clear, succinct, and without room for doubt. What the hell are you talking about? This man literally has been lying since he walked into the courtroom, and then he says something. They're like, oh, this must be true. Aw, shucks. You really think so? I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well. Mr. Justice, you may begin your final cross-examination. Final cross-examination because I fucking quit the game after this? Yeah, maybe. We have one trump card left to play. Do we? I have no clue what our evidence is. Did we ever use this? I assume it's tiny frame. I feel like that's all we have. I can't remember what's been used and what hasn't. If we haven't used the letterbox, that's not, I mean, it's important in a sense that it shows that he doesn't go outside, but that's not really relevant right now. And the stupid painting. Oh yeah, I forgot about the, yeah, oh, hey, show evidence that he forged stuff. Hey, what about this forged painting right here? No! And like, I kind of get the idea that it's like, okay, so this is supposed, I mean, technically it doesn't say it's stolen. I think Emma says it's stolen, but this doesn't say it. But, I mean, I still 100% believe this should have, I mean, they both should have worked, but this one should have worked more. And I won't let this trial in until I use it. And really, it wouldn't have been that bad if it hadn't have come right after the sweat bullshit. Just a truly heinous prompt. Probably one of the worst in the series, which says a lot. Definitely the worst in this game, like by far. That doesn't prove you're poisoned it. How many times have you heard that one, her forehead? The poison reached its victim via that coffee mug. And from where did that coffee come? Not to beat a dead horse again and again, but perhaps you could fill us in. I'm wanting. You need a horse beat. I'm your man. I love beating off horses. You witnessed her pouring the coffee? Of course I didn't witness it. When she came in with that tray, the coffee was already poured and steaming. Let us not forget the defendant has admitted to pouring the coffee herself. I heard her statement. I poured, I served, and I killed. I think she didn't say that. That last part was just a little joke. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere with this coffee mug. Need to find another weak spot in the case. Okay, so this part would be where we present our sticker, our stamp. Or, well, our belief that it's a stamp. You sure about that? Well, to be really, really precise, I was gobbling mint candies the whole time. One of those candies might have been poisoned. And yet at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room. Well, maybe his breath was already so stinky that the mint couldn't do anything. This man didn't leave his house. You think he brushed his teeth? And no mint residue was found. Mint residue? Bro, what type of candies you guys eating? Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this. You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than coffee? Well, Mr. Justice, you have some proof? Possibility's there, I can feel it. Just maybe not prove it, not yet. The possibility isn't going to cut it, not now. Mr. Misham ingested that poison via a route other than coffee. I can prove it. Well, not really, but proof is possible. I gotta risk it. Excellent. Let's see your proof then. Please show us your evidence. What evidence shows that the victim wasn't poisoned via this coffee mug? Are you out of your fucking mind? How is that not right? Must I explain this over and over? We don't need possibilities here, her forehead. We need proof. I know that. You can also know that every proof is of the moment. Perhaps you're a bit early. God, I hate this game so much. Another hole in this case that needs plugging before I can prove anything. First things first, I better uncover a weak spot before I try and strike again. Okay, at least I didn't get penalized. Alright, I'm not mad anymore. No, wait, what did he even say there? Yep, sure as can be. Well, with one exception. One exception? What? Journalist Spark Brushel does interview. Leave studio. End quote. Come on, guys. It's a joke. Get it? Not funny, I know, but still. Something leave the studio that night? Why does that sound familiar? Where have I heard something like that before? Now we've proven our witness is a comedian of sorts. I'd like to turn to our defense attorney for a return to the testimony. You have any idea what, if anything, might have left the studio that night? I don't remember. I mean, a letter, but like, I don't really know how to make the connection with what we have. Technically, Vera left the studio. I can't remember if they, because it's one of the problems of doing this over multiple days, is that I remember he said that there was a letter put in the box, but I can't remember if we just accepted that as truth or not. Because if we say, okay, he did put a letter in the box, but now there's nothing in the box, then obviously the letter must have been moved, but I don't remember if we actually established that as a truth, or if he was just lying. Because I feel like we treated it as he was lying. I don't remember, but it's probably the box. But like, if I present the box, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I feel like it shouldn't work. No, I meant the wrong one. If anything did leave, wouldn't Mr. Brushel have noticed? Well, that I would. Nothing left, save myself, of course. Yeah. I clicked the wrong one. Because usually it's like the top one is yes and bottom's no. Back to the cross-examination, but they just like randomly switch it for no reason. Well, let's press through everything first. Say clearly as though it was obvious. But this claim the defendant poisoned the victim is merely conjecture. Well, yes, you see. And my business is all about making the most ridiculous things sound right. A bad habit, I know. Well, actually, I guess it's more of a case of ridiculous journalist sounds wrong, end quote. Court is forced to agree with you. Please refrain from wild conjecture. Well, understood loud and clear. If only I could believe that. What do you think, Apollo? Everything he's saying seems so not flawed. It's kind of what you want from a testimony, really. You need to keep my eye on what matters. How and why was Drew Misham killed? Here for the coffee. That's not going to change. But if that coffee didn't kill him, you need to find what did and prove it. Okay, so let's just go back to that second to last one. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, just one thing. I think one thing might very well have left the studio that night, actually. A certain something has vanished from the crime scene. Oh, what you mean? Something other than our witness? Of course. Don't tell me. Vera Misham? Well, I mean, I said that as a joke, but no, not really. Believe me, any comedic relief I may provide is entirely unintentional. Damn, ain't that the truth? Let's see what you've got for us, Mr. Justice. Well, the thing wasn't at the scene of the crime, so I can't show it to you. But I do have evidence that shows how it could have been taken. Okay, they phrased this well. Because that's kind of like, if I present the letterbox, I feel like they could easily be like, this, what do you mean the letterbox wasn't there? It's clearly right here. It's in your back pocket. But they prompt that well. Unlike the previous prompt with the sweat. Good God, who okayed that? Well, we know, and they have been dealt with. This is the only leak outside the studio and the outside world. A letterbox? I hate it when the movies do that. Oh, it's like I'm seeing less of the movie or something. I mean, I know I'm not really, and actually it's the superior format, but I don't know. I remember when I was a kid, that was what adults would always say. They'd say, oh, I hate the letterbox, it's got the black lines on it. I don't know. You know, first video in like 4 days. There's a little like reacclimating we have to do. When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter. Yeah, he said that, and yeah, it was true. Furthermore, you wanted to tell us that he put the letter in a yellow envelope and put it in the letterbox. Whoa! That very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night the yellow envelope disappeared. Yeah, it's intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Well, isn't it also possible that the man who has lied 20 times was lying? Of course, this changes nothing. He has a point, Mr. Justice. What we're trying to figure out here is how the poison got into Mr. Misham. It's really important the envelope the witness says he saw disappeared. Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave the studio that night. Seems very important to me. Very well, then the witness will add this to his testimony. You got it. Don't think this fails to change anything her forehead. I wouldn't be so sure. A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for. Okay. So I see you're supposed to kind of do it like piecemeal, and then we'll eventually get to present the stamp thing, which is fine. In the moment, I was annoyed because I thought they were going to penalize me for it. When they asked me to like, hey, you want to present some evidence? I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I know where this is going, but having to establish everything first is fine. Nothing could be more serious than an envelope disappearing from that studio. And you were hiding that fact from us. Well, yes, actually. I don't argue the possibility that a letter disappeared from the studio, but her forehead. Isn't there a much more serious question before us? Right, how Mr. Mitchell was poisoned, I know. Mr. Brussels' testimony has changed, which means the fact of the case have too. And what he's told us means something entirely different now. It's hard to think. Let's keep thinking, Apollo. So I wonder if these other ones have anything new as well? Okay, maybe we just go back, because I feel like we still need like another establishing step before we present the stamp thing, but... But maybe not. Maybe it's just that then. You sure about that? I'll be really, really precise. I was gobbling the candies. Oh man, I love candies. Okay, so I mean, I guess we've established that the letter is mailable, potentially. Granted, we don't necessarily know that it was mailed, but could have just been like straight up stolen, but I mean, I feel like there's arguments for like we have enough to present the stamp thingy, but I mean, technically we don't know that it's a stamp thingy. We're just using common sense, which sometimes is all you need in these games, and many times is not what you need. I've proved the disappearing envelope. I saw him writing the letter I did. Just picked up with a mailman, I assume. Of course. Which means that envelope had a stamp on it. Okay, so we're just going with the base assumption that the mailman picked it up and it wasn't like stolen. Which is fine, but you know, they have to establish that first. As we all know, stamps come with dried glue on the back. In order to use the glue, you have to wet it by licking the stamp. No one worth talking to actually licks stamps in this day and age. Well, he wasn't worth talking to. Even if you wanted to talk to him, you couldn't. He's dead after all. Okay, so he licked the stamp. But wait! How does that explain the atropine on the rim of the coffee mug? He licked the back of the poison stamp. The poison would get on his tongue, yes? What would happen if he put the coffee mug to his mouth? Those traces on the mug weren't the killer's doing. It was the other way around. What? The coffee mug didn't poison Mr. Misham. Mr. Misham poisoned the coffee mug. Order, order, order! But that doesn't... does it? Recall, if you would. Atropine is a slow-acting poison, yes? The poison entered his body when he put the stamp on that envelope. But this time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his lips to that cup of joe. Oh, he's sniffing. You have something to add, Mr. Brussel? Oh no, his nose is picking up another scent. I believe I mentioned earlier. Hey, it's a flashback to me in the same pose. Well, that's the thing. After he put that letter in the envelope, Mr. Misham's out there searching his desk drawer for something. Yeah, a stamp, a so-called postage stamp. End quote. But, you know, I don't seem to ever remember him finding one. Maybe he just run out? Incidentally, we searched the desk drawer at the scene of the crime. There were no stamps, not a single one. Huh, that does pose a problem. How will you prove the stamp was coated with poison? Actually, I'm glad no other stamps were found. It makes proving the stamp you used was poison possible. Good show, good show. You can't even prove there was a stamp at the scene in the first place. Well, let's see what the defense has to say anyway. Where's your evidence that proves the existence of the poison stamp? They have like questions like this in the game, and then they have questions like, hey, did you see his fucking sweat spot? Did you see the slightly darker shadow in the shadow already in the black and white? Oh, you couldn't make out the third shade of dark that shows up for 4 seconds? Fuck you. You can't beat our game. How about you go commit die? And then they're like, hey, got any idea what could be the stamp? That certainly is a cute little frame. And by little, I mean really little. It was on the victim's desk, Your Honor. Quite empty, as you can see for yourself. I noticed that too during my inspection. So what? Apparently you weren't as observant as you should have been. You see, you saw this frame. It was missing something quite important. Missing something? A pale bluish stain on the inside of the frame. Atroquine residue. Why wasn't I told about this? Because we obfuscated evidence so we could present it as a bombshell that would then get thrown out in court, because you can't really do that. The frame is only 2 inches square. The face of the frame is even smaller. Maybe an inch wide at most. Now you may be wondering, why did he have a frame stamp? I don't know. Do you think being that weird justifies being murdered? Maybe. But, you know, that's for the courts to decide. You aren't sane. I mean, I'm not saying if you have a framed postage stamp that, like, it's okay legally for you to be murdered, but I think we should at least consider the question. I think it's something it's worth musing about. Oh, but I am. Tell me, what fits in such a small frame? Like maybe if you had multiple stamps, that's like one thing. Like, okay, you got a stamp collection, but if you just have like one stamp in a frame, maybe you've made too many wrong life decisions and you're a danger to society. I'm just saying it's a little unhinged. A commemorative stamp, perhaps? Order, order, order. The poison stamp was in this frame? Impossible. Prosecutor Gavin. Why would he put something like that on his desk? Don't tell me he had it there so he could commit suicide if the mood struck. You know what, can I say something? I had a thought, see? What, Mr. Bushram? Please stop jittering around like that. Victim was a forger, right? There's a lot of money in that line of work. Forger forges friend, makes enemies too. End quote. So the poison stamp might have been a murder weapon aimed at him. Oh, Rich, that's Rich. Leave the ridiculous flights of fancy to the Gavinier song lyrics, please. Finally, something we agree on. The stamp was a murder weapon. Nonsense. Murder's a simple business. Who would go to such lengths? No one. Have you ever seen one of these cases? Oh, I disagree. Come again. Recall, if you would, the victim's reclusive lifestyle. Misham hid from the world. He avoided meetings. His only contact with the outside world was the mail. The mail? Now, if you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet, but you knew read letters, a stamp would be the perfect weapon. Ridiculous. Where's your proof? I want proof. Show us evidence the poison stamp was sent to him as a murder weapon. I might not have evidence, per se. But things are finally starting to come together. What is it, Apollo? Professor Tremblay. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. No, wait, did this thing mention a stamp in it? Yeah, okay, it says enclosed stamp. So we probably use that as proof that, like, he's getting sent specific stamps before. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Mission was killed. Well, fill us in, Mr. Justice. A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor. And I can show you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Mission the stamp of death. Isn't those the envelope? The one from that's really old? Think about the text of the letter again. Sorry, Paulo, I don't really care to read. That's like an essay. Never seen so many words in my life. There were 2 pages in the envelope. This is page 1. And this is page 2. I want to draw your attention to one phrase in particular. Bro, it's literally 8 sentences. Send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 3 days. I mean, you read like a third of the letter there. The enclosed stamp, Your Honor. Ah! In other words, if I have to straight, the stamp, poison on the stamp, lick, lick, gasp, end quote. Now, what if he had done exactly as the letter asked? He would sign the document, put it in the envelope, and put the stamp on it, right? Then he would put it in his letterbox. 15 minutes wouldn't have elapsed between affixing the stamp and mailing the letter. The clock started ticking, and when the time came, he drew his last breath. And the murder weapon would be taken away from the scene. Why, conveniently, thanks to the postal system. I knew we should abolish that shit. I want free and easy mail access. Well, fuck you. I'm old. Such a splendid imagination you have, her forehead. I mean, I guess in theory, old people would be more likely to want to abolish the mail system. I mean, less likely because they maybe use it. I don't know. It's just weird. Let me confirm one thing with you, if I might. This poison stamp inside this envelope was from 7 years ago, yeah? Is that what you'd really have us believe? Really? Well, no. It's just, you know, it's evidence of, I mean, we have no reason to believe that he stopped 7 years ago. This is just proof of a trend, potentially. If it was regular for him to be sent envelopes and stamps in the mail for his illicit payments, if it happened once, what's the reasoning to assume it can't happen multiple times? Plus, we know he was still actively forging. A little bit of a stretch, but there's a possibility. Yeah, it's a very small possibility. How small, I wonder? Well, I mean, smaller than or larger than the possibility that his daughter just murdered him for no reason whatsoever, with no evidence to point to it happening at all. A poison stamp in this envelope, a stamp that then becomes a murder weapon. How do you intend to prove this seeming coincidence? Well, 7 years ago, we don't even know who sent that letter. And your answer is silent. I mean, like, I don't know, I feel like you shouldn't let him just dictate the idea that the stamp is 7 years old. Not nice to pick on the Fräulein, Clavier. What the hell? What? Emma? Well, like my Christoph Gavin impression? Did I sound like him? I mean, I guess. You all kind of sound pretty similar at the end of the day. Don't quit your day job. Don't you have a crime scene to be looking after, Fräulein Detective? Someone had to come dig you out of the mess you're making in this case. Yes. You know, none of those would happen if you just trusted in science a little more. You can find out that stamp was in the envelope easy. Care to explain yourself? Swear me all you want, but science is on my side. It's all in the residue, right? That's right, the poison detection spray. Produce the red envelope at once. You can open it on the authority of the court. Oh. By God. Well, would you look at that? Okay, so maybe it is the stamp is 7 years old and he's having it on his desk. I feel like that's fucking weirder than just saying that. I mean, I feel like the more sound argument is that, okay, if he was regularly sent stamps by his client, or if, you know, we can at least prove that this has happened, it's not that big of a leap to assume that it happened in the future, because we know he was still active in forging. No mistaking it. That's residue. I don't believe it. Murder weapon from the past. Well, I guess if you think about it, all murder weapons are kind of from the past because, you know, everything's in the past. Even these sentences that I'm saying, but, you know what I mean. 7 years later, it bears its fangs at last. Hey, that rhymed. Maybe I got bars. Absolutely outrageous. Tell me why. Why didn't this murder take place 7 years ago? Well, he didn't lick the stamp? There's one possibility. Maybe Mr. Misham figured it out. Figured what out? He realized the person who sent the letter wanted him dead. So he sent his reply with a different stamp. And put his decisive evidence on a frame? And then licked that shit? That's kind of weird. Ah, you're still here. Can I make a statement here on the record? I, Spark Razor Toothbrushel, claim the scoop is mine. You may all leave the court now. I am on the case. This is now my video game. Fuck you, Apollo. That's why you don't get to be the main character anymore. Why you get replaced by me, Mr. Brushel. Drew Misham killed in cold blood. My sender of 7-year-old letter, end quote. No, maybe something more succinct. Star falls after 7-year delay, end quote. Order. See no room for further argument here. Though I admit, this is all coming as quite a shock. Think that the murder weapon reached his mouth after 7 years. Stamp his stick straight to afterlife, end quote. Oh no, I think the witness is a bad influence on our judge. There's no need for further debate on this matter. Sender of that letter 7 years ago could hardly have been our defendant. Apollo? I think we just won. Very well, this court finds the defendant. Is this the bright future of our legal system? Prosecutor? Gavin? A ticket to the afterlife from 7 years ago. Tickets for Gavin Ear shows are invalid after 2 weeks. It doesn't make sense any other way. It boggles my mind that so many people haven't noticed this. It's a fatal contradiction to her Fullerhead's claim. A contradiction? Well, why would he lick it? A poison stamp was placed in the envelope 7 years ago. Whereupon it was framed until now. If that's the case, then why would Drew Misham have done what he did? Emma explained that. He must have realized it was poison. And therein lies the rub. 7 years ago, the forger Drew Misham sensed a trap and put the stamp in a frame. I do not debate this, but it begs the question. Why 7 years later did he use that stamp on the night of the murder? Surely you don't mean to suggest that Mr. Misham simply forgot. He put the murder weapon in a frame on his desk for 7 years and forgot? Well, he was old. Maybe he had dementia. I don't know, I guess he wasn't that old. He's like 50 or something, right? It's not really dementia age, but maybe it was, early. You expect us to believe he sprang the trap on himself? I mean, at the very least, you have no evidence. I mean, there's like, if you accept any of that as truth, then it means the daughter couldn't have committed the crime and has no reason to be a suspicious person and then would be declared not guilty anyway. Like, yeah, it doesn't solve the mystery of the crime, but it definitely establishes that you have the wrong person being prosecuted. Well, I admit this is all quite shocking myself. Does seem highly unlikely that he would fall afoul of a trap. I haven't been sitting on his desk for 7 years. Apollo? I don't think we're winning anymore. I mean, like, realistically, we would win. Glad to see we're all back in the real world now. Welcome back to reality. We've been waiting for you. Okay, then how do you explain the poison stamp that was in the envelope? The poison stamp? Where exactly is this poison stamp again? Have you brought it to court for us? I see no proof that such a thing ever existed. What about the atroquine residue, huh? Oh, I agree, that does seem to be atroquine residue. But her forehead, it's certainly no stamp. Yeah, but even if your precious poison stamp did exist, Drew Misham never would have used it. That is all. Oh, we've come to a conclusion again. Apollo, were we wrong the whole time? Obviously not. Or it's like, it doesn't matter if we're wrong. We're literally just here to make sure the daughter doesn't get killed. Poison traces match up. It can't be coincidence. I'd like to bring some closure to this issue sometime this year. Mr. Justice? Yes, Your Honor? Let's review the facts and see where we stand. 7 years ago, Drew Misham received a red envelope. There were traces of the poison atroquine on the document inside the envelope. A similar trace was also found at the crime scene, on this tiny picture frame. The defense indicated the possibility of a yellow envelope, an envelope that left the scene of the crime with a poison stamp on it. If only we could somehow track down that envelope via some sort of mail record. Maybe if we were able to, you know, have some sort of office that posts things and has records of where it sends stuff? Yeah, maybe that'd be a good idea. Even if this envelope contained a poison stamp, Andrew Misham, knowing this, put it in a frame. He never would have used that stamp. I'm afraid you're right. Which means there's a fatal flaw in the defense's case. I haven't been on the wrong track this whole time, I'm sure of it. Traces of atroquine, the envelope, the frame, and Drew Misham's mysterious death. They're all connected somehow. Mr. Justice, do you have a conclusion for us? The defense stands by its case, Your Honor. We've seen that the logical outcome of the evidence makes no sense, which means that one of our clues must be a fake. Huh, fake clue. Fascinating. If we find this fake, your wild fantasies will prove quite reasonable, yeah? The fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than... what? We have a fake clue? So the frame. I can't remember. Did dude ever say that he saw the frame? So the red envelope, the frame, Drew Misham. So if they're a fake... when they say fake clue, what do they mean? Like, do they mean that it... I mean, red envelope kind of makes them... well, no, because Emma said that she's the one who opened it, right? Well, actually, or did she say? I can't remember because she said she... no, she said... I can't remember if she said she looked into it or not. But we do know that it was opened. So, I mean, that's the only evidence of there was any sort of, like, potential... whatever you call it. I can't think of the word. So yeah, I'm gonna say red envelope. This red envelope is a fake. Without a doubt, Your Honor. Wasn't it you who presented this evidence in the court? No, I do kind of wish it maybe... well, no, I think if you look at it, it mentions that it was opened, right? No, it doesn't. Okay, there should be some sort of hint here that it had been opened previously. It's something that's one of my biggest pet peeves with this series, is that it loves its flashbacks so fucking much. And then it will regularly, every case will have one thing where it expects you to remember something from 4 hours ago. It's like a game that'll like, hey, here's a flashback to something happened that's 7 seconds ago. And then it's like, oh yeah, you have to remember that this thing was actually open previously. It was mentioned one time 4 hours ago. Poison on the envelope, the frame, and the coffee mug? They're all connected somehow. Right. Wait, it wasn't right? Oh my god, really? How is that not correct? I mean, you're not punished for it, but that's really dumb. I don't know, Drew Misham. The victim was a fake clue. I don't know, I just wanted to click it. Yeah, once I learned that there's no drawback, I'll explain. We have an envelope, a frame, and a mug linked by poison. That all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the victim himself.
Objection!
Congratulations, you completely lost me. I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not mad that they expect you to remember the envelope was open before. But now I'm mad because, like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. They ask, hey, which one of these is fake? The victim. So the fake evidence is none other than the master of fake himself, the forger. I think it's a good story, I'll give you that. Fake clue. Fakes. Forgeries. Ah! I know that face. That's I just had an idea face. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going with it anyway. What if our forger is the fake? Tell me again. 7 years ago, our forger sniffed a trap and stepped aside. 7 years passed. Now the forger stumbles into that very same trap and dies. Why? That's what I want to know. Because the forger who was killed was a fake. Here we are again. The victim was a fake. One forger smelled the trap. One forger fell into the trap. That's two forgers, and one of them was a fake. This doesn't deserve this music. Order, order, order! You're telling us that Drew Misham, the victim, was a fake? Well, if he was the fake, who was the real forger? You better not be claiming those some cars a rich switcheroo. Ray, you're going to have to back up your story. Mr. Justice, show us who the real Drew Misham was. But Drew Misham wasn't the real forger. Only one other person it could have been. Understood, Your Honor. Forger Drew Misham was himself a forgery. The real forger was... I don't know. Phoenix forged evidence that one time, apparently. Have we even talked to you in this game? Or in this chapter? Oh, yeah. I mean, you're introduced. That, I mean, as of right now, this case, we don't know that this case has anything to do with the magic stuff. Like, that hasn't been officially established. You know, you can use your brain to figure it out, but as far as we know, there's no connection. And then you... I mean, would she have been old enough? I mean, I feel like Vera makes a little sense. We know she paints. But, like, it's just the age doesn't really make any damn sense. And, I mean, it would progress the story in a way. I mean, it's either Vera or they're like, hey, remember that Phoenix doesn't really make any sense, but it's like, we know he forged evidence, apparently. But I feel like Vera makes more sense, like, logically? But also not, because that would be implying that she was forging stuff at the age of 12 and involved in the criminal mob, which is like too anime for me, and I hate it. There's only one explanation, really. The real identity of the forger, known as Drew Misham, is none other than his only daughter, Vera Misham. Order, order, order! Mr. Justice, this is going out on a limb even for you! I kinda agree. I mean, Vera, a forger. Let's consider before you write it off entirely. If you look at the paintings in the studio, one fact becomes quite clear. Forgery had been taking place in that studio for quite some time. The forger wasn't caught in that trap 7 years ago. This can only mean that the one who was caught in the trap wasn't the forger. Huh? But he died. That does make a certain kind of sense. One more thing. Only 2 sets of fingerprints are found in the forger's studio. Drew Misham's and Vera Misham's. We know that Drew Misham wasn't the forger. That leaves only one possibility of our process of elimination. The forger was Vera Misham. Well... fascinating. okay? But, like, why frame the stamp? Why not just throw it away? Vera Misham? You been paying attention to the trial so far? Let's just ask her and be done with it, shall we? Who are you? Who is the forger? Drew Misham? Is that an expression of emotion I saw on her face? Staring holes into Prosecutor Gavin's face. I mean, maybe she recognizes him as other dude? Other Kristoff? They usually talk to me too. Tell us, are you the one who forged those works of art? Yes. Well, the forger? Drew Misham was you? Yes. What? What? I don't know. I don't care. The court was in an uproar and it wasn't coming down. We had to break for a 10-minute recess. I don't know. I feel like they've kind of like jumped the shark a little too much for me right now. Maybe I'll come around, but like right now I'm just like, I don't care. 12-year-old involved in the mob. Also was able to secretly do all this stuff while living in a one-room house with her dad, who apparently also had no idea any of this was going on. And then like the stamp was framed for some reason and put on dudes. Because I mean, like, in a way, I was like, I'm more accepting of the idea that okay, he like framed the stamp and put it there for evidence or something and put it on his desk, but the daughter putting the poison stamp on her dad's desk and then just hoping he would never ever use it is kind of stupid. But like then he decides to use this stamp that he's had for 7 years randomly, even though I mean like you could have to assume that she told him it was some sort of commemorative thing, which is why he wouldn't have used it for so long. But then at the spur of the moment he just decides to use it. I don't know. I'm just kind of meh on it. Where exactly does this leave us, Apollo? Well, the Drew Misham who was killed wasn't Drew Misham the forger, basically. Well then, who was he? He was actually... Look at her nails. He really made those forgeries? Yes. Poor father. I know, it was wrong. Okay, so he knew then? But then why'd he use the stamp? Because I feel like the whole idea that he wouldn't use the stamp only works if he didn't have any idea of what was going on. My father was a painter. I loved painting ever since I was a child. One day, father saw it in me. He saw that I had the talent. Okay, the talent for making forgeries? How should I say it? It was not the only paintings I made. Given them, because I mean, like, if he was in on it, I'm not so mad about it. Because it's like, I mean, it's not like my objection is not the idea that like a 12-year-old can paint really well. Because I think, you know, if you're an actual child prodigy, yeah, you can paint really well. That's not that uncommon. It's just the idea of the 12-year-old solo dealing with the mob while their parents don't know about it. That's what annoys me. And I feel like the whole idea that he didn't know about what was going on only works if the dad was completely unaware of her doing forgeries for like the mob. Given the materials, I could make anything. Anything. Father was so proud, and I so happy. But in the end, I was making those forgeries. Never had a good constitution, nor personality. I know very little of the world outside my door. Now, because of me, Father is... You know about this red envelope? I remember that envelope. it was some time ago. You were already creating your works back then? Started when I was only 12 years old. And when you figured out the stamp was poison, that was... Yeah, and the idea also that the 12-year-old would figure out the stamp was poison, it seems a little far-fetched to me. Because, I mean, like, the idea that she could paint real good at a young age is fine. Like, I accept that 100%. I don't think that's that weird. But it's just when you go the extra step and they're like, actually, they're a fucking super genius. Bah. It's just not one of my favorite tropes. And by not one of my favorite tropes, it's one I actively dislike. Right, out of time. Wait, Vera, just one more thing, please. Those 3 paintings in the studio. I painted those as part of my work. Right, see, we checked them out and we saw what was underneath. We saw the rough sketches underneath the 3 finished paintings. I kind of forgot about that. I see. I mean, if she had dealings with Phoenix, then it would kind of make sense that she's following Apollo's cases. Yeah? Father, he knew of you. Of both of you. Your late father? He was watching, gathering information. All about the Wright & Co. law offices. But lately, we're not just doing law. Yes, you do tricks, gags to amuse, and play piano. Well, they're not really gags. Yet when Father heard you had resumed the legal business, how pleased he was. Who was Mr. Mission? How am I supposed to know? What if he was Daddy's daddy? Apollo was, I mean not Apollo, Phoenix was birthed into the world out of the ether? Judging from the relative ages involved, I'd say it's highly unlikely. I mean, not really. I mean... Okay, well no, Phoenix is like 33 now. I mean, that would be 19? That's not... crazy. Things are already confusing enough with all these daddies running around. You know that the victim's daughter, Vera, was the forger. What does this mean for the case? Guess we're about to find out. The courtroom after... Wait, we're still doing the trial? Court is back in session. Wait, what? We're not doing an investigation? Oh, it does say trial part 2. Alright, well, whatever. I think we're gonna call it here. I don't know. I think it's... I don't know, something about the sweat prompt has, like, killed my, like, enthusiasm. It was so bad. I feel like I'm just, like, I don't know. Because, like, that prompt was so bad that it brought me back to the old me. So I'm tilted still, even though it's been, like, you know, 3 or 4 days. Just thinking about it pisses me off. And then it's just, like... I don't know. I'm not super, like... just something about this case is just kind of boring to me, I guess. And I don't really know why. You know, I think what part of it is, part of the reason why this case kind of sucks to me right now, is I feel like your investigation period was basically just you're in a room with Emma. Like, there wasn't really a lot of, like, there hasn't been a lot of personality so far. Because, like, the last case, I think, had really bad logic for, like, its trial stuff, but the investigation sections were a lot of fun. Right? Like, the whole beginning part, you had, like, you know, several, you know, new characters for the case. They had their own things going on. And then this case is just, like, that's not really, I mean, you got to see Gavin, you know, in, like, a different light in the last case. Because, I mean, we talked to the magician guy a little bit. So, honestly, I think maybe if they focus more on the magic stuff, like, that feels like a bit more interesting than, like, oh, because it's like, you know, it's going to go into that eventually, so I feel like I'd rather just focus on that instead of this painting thing that I don't really care that much about. I mean, I know it's eventually going to wrap back into the case 7 years ago when Phoenix potentially forging evidence and whatever. Which that is interesting, but I guess it's just kind of like, so far, there just hasn't been a lot of personalities. But, you know, our defendant, her thing is that she doesn't talk, which is not really fun. Plus, we already did that in the last chapter. I don't know. I think the more I think about it, I've narrowed in on why I don't like this case so far. Is there's just not much going on. I think it's just like there's a lot of lacking in the personality department. Like, you know, the Rushel guy, I feel like he's just a character we've seen before. He's just Guy from chapter 5 of the first game. You know, the bonus Emma case. He's just a security guard dude. He doesn't feel like all that distinct. Yeah, I think that's the main issue. But alright. And that could change, right? I mean, I'd said this at the start. Generally, I think the last chapters are the best in all the 3 previous games I've played. Like, well, kind of. Chapter 4 was the best in the first Phoenix Wright. Chapter 4 was by far the best in the second Phoenix Wright. And then the third game, I don't know. I can't really remember how much I liked the last chapter. Yeah, it was probably my favorite. So yeah. I mean, like, I guess I have high expectations for it being the last one, and it feels like there's so much stuff that needs to be wrapped up in it. Potentially. And I just feel like so far we have made, like, very little progress, and it's just been a little boring. But that could change. I'm ExtraCheesy87. Stay tuned for the next part. And bye, guys.